How in the world do you deal with a client, a bully client, that insists on setting the price for the deal? How do you deal with that? See if this sounds familiar. You're in front of the client for an annual review, and right away, he or she starts complaining immediately. Now, throughout the year, you haven't heard a peep from this particular client about problems or issues, even though you've checked in. But at the annual review, oh my, they tell a very different story. And it may go something like this.
I sure hope that you're telling me you're giving me a discount on my next order because I've experienced a lot of problems with your company, and you better be careful because your competition wants my business.
Now, most salespeople, this would put them on the defense. And it's an intimidation tactic to make you feel guilty. In every organization, there seems to be that one person that does this. Now, I've worked with people like this. I've sold to people like this. I've had coaching clients come to me with the same type of examples. So we're going to learn how to handle this right after this. If you like the Savvy Sales Lady Live, you're really going to like the Savvy Sales Lady newsletter. It's delivered in your inbox once a week. Why don't you go ahead and subscribe? The link is in the show notes below so you won't miss this upcoming newsletter. I give you one tip to focus on each week to implement immediately into your sales day. Why not sign up and learn just a little bit more? So how do you handle the client who wants to use guilt to get discounts? First, you absolutely cannot take this personally. See this for what this really is. The client is using emotional sabotage to get what he or she wants by nitpicking you, your company, and your product. My coaching client, Sarah, was at her wits' end trying to deal with this type of client. Every time she did an annual review, this client became a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. During the year, he was pleasant, easygoing. Then at renewal time, he became a nightmare for Sarah. I asked her, did he ever bring up any of this during the year? Any complaints during the year? And she said, no, not one time. He always waited to renewal time to unload on her so that he could intimidate to get the price he wanted. And he used Sarah's boss as a bargaining tool because he golfed with her boss at least once a month. So there are two problems Sarah was facing. The first problem is the client knew these tactics worked on Sarah because they've worked in the past. This client skillfully turned minor issues into major problems. And he claimed these problems were deal breakers unless he got the price he wanted. And of course, he blamed Sarah for it all. The second problem Sarah had, she allowed this client to get under her skin to make fear-based decisions. So Sarah needed to solve two problems. First, she needed to learn to control her emotions and detach from the outcome and stop letting the fear of the client going to her boss to rule her decisions. Then the second thing she needed to do is tell the bully client no. So in our coaching sessions, Sarah and we practiced how this was going to look. Sarah was facing the renewal review within the week, and she was worried. So we practice on how that conversation would go. So now the showdown. When Sarah walked into the bully client's office, he didn't even get up to greet her. He just kind of motioned to her to sit down in a chair. Rude, right? Then, in a very slow, disgusting tone, he said,
Hello, Sarah.
she responded upbeat, "Hi, Brad, it's good to see you." He said,
Well, Sarah, I wish I could say the same about you. Your numbers are very, very disappointing, and frankly, I don't even know how you could show your face in my office.
yeah. Sarah didn't respond. She sat there like we practice, waiting for him to give her eye contact. After a long pause, he kind of flinged the renewal at her and said,
Did you get my email? I was very specific on what I need.
calmly, Sarah said, "Yes, I did, Brad. I got your email and I responded. Our offer is very fair and reasonable." He then came back and said,
How can you say that after all the problems your company has caused me throughout the year?
again, Sarah remained calm and replied, "Well, I agree with you that we have experienced some issues, and I wouldn't blame you if you leave because of those issues. Let me propose this. After we review the renewal, let me know today if you will accept it or you'll be leaving. Is that fair enough?" Brad said,
You mean accept it with the discount, right?
and Sarah responded calmly again, "I mean, accept our fair renewal price or you'll be leaving us as a client." Brad threw up his hands and said,
Well, we don't have anything to talk about.
and she remained calm and said this, "Is that your final decision?" Sarah told me he motioned for her to leave. And as she was walking out of the office, she did a Columbo move that we practiced. She turned and said, "Brad, as I said earlier, hopefully you'll be able to have a decision by the end of the day. Although I would hate to lose your business, I'll understand if that is your final decision." She turned and left. So what happened? Instead of caving to her emotions, Sarah opened the door to have an adult conversation, allowing Brad to reciprocate. She didn't try to defend herself against Brad's jabs. She simply stayed neutral. Brad wasn't having a conversation. He was talking at Sarah, diminishing her on every opportunity. Now, the new Sarah said no to Brad and gave him the opportunity of saying no as well to leave as a client. But what happened? Brad called her the next day and accepted the renewal as is. He never tried to bully Sarah again. So, what if Brad did leave as a client? What if he just decided to pack up and leave and go to the competitor? Well, let me ask you this. Do you really want a client like Brad? I sure don't. That's my opinion. And I don't care how much revenue he brings in. Having a bully client is not worth it. You'll never be able to please them. And that's my opinion. As I have said many times before, negotiating isn't about giving something up. People often confuse negotiating with bargaining. When you're bargaining, you're giving something up for an exchange for something. In the past, Sarah bargained. She gave up price in order to keep Brad's business, and then she would have to go back and justify the price decrease to her boss, which was never a pleasant conversation. She was losing on both sides. A negotiation is a mutual discussion. All she got out of Brad was a one-way street. I always talk about don't bargain your price, but you can negotiate terms. If you have a client like Brad, you must remain neutral and be open to discuss negotiations of terms and the fact that that client may walk away. Be fine with that. Bargaining is way overused in the business world, and it's too often used when the salesperson feels that she or he needs to make a sale. If you'd like more coaching around how to deal with a difficult client or a bullying client, in the description area below, there's a link where you can click for a one-time discounted coaching session. Just see it in the link below. But remember, sales is a journey, not a quick trip around the block. I'll see you on the next video. Sell the savvy way.